Alright, so my name is Bethany Hughes and I'm a medical journalism student, and I just wanted to ask you what you think the biggest health concern is for college students.
As an undergrad myself, I think lack of sleep would be my answer. Even right now, I'm like struggling to say it because I didn't sleep much last night. I think not having a full night's rest really affects your ability to perform the next day, and especially when you have such a high stress environment and when you're running around and it takes more energy, both mentally and physically, to go throughout your day. The lack of sleep starts having detrimental effects on how well you perform and your emotions and being able to stay grounded. So I think it has really wide reaching effects on everything else when you don't sleep.
Now, do you think this can also lead into other health concerns? Like, they say your immune system can be compromised by lack of sleep. Have you had any experience where not sleeping the night before has made you feel like you got sicker the next day or
I,
something?
I definitely think so. I spent more time sick, and usually at the start of spring semester, after having already had fall semester and then coming back to the stressful environment again, I noticed that I would consistently get sick, and it would take so much longer in this setting to get rid of that than, say, if I were at home. And I think also, on top of that, it plays onto your mental health as well because you're spending more time out of the classroom and then you stress more. And when you're sick, you just don't feel good overall. So I think it one will probably make you sicker, and then also, your mental health is going to take a toll too. So wellness in that way is also compromised.
So you think that lack of sleep actually is what kind of concerns a lot of students' bigger health
I
problems?
think for me, I would say that it was for me, and I would say for a lot of other people. I don't think for everyone because some people maybe have different schedules where their stresses maybe come from um, what their next move is going to be rather than what their day to day is. So, for someone who has a part time job and works and goes to class and also is part of student organizations or anything else, and maybe also has more involvement with their family, if there are family issues and stresses, like they're going to have such a long day that their lack of sleep is going to affect everything else. Where maybe somebody is getting a full, 8 hours a night, but they are still having some health issues, whether it be their eating or their drinking habits. That may be their top answer, but I think for those of us who spread ourselves really thin, it's going to be the lack of sleep that's kind of like that main point.
And now, caffeine, do you think this helps or hurt the problem?
Caffeine.
Yeah, so if somebody does pull an all nighter and then they take a bunch of coffee or energy drinks, do you think this is helping or hurting their health overall?
Hurting overall. Like if you go one night, say it was like a late Thursday night, and you got to just have a soda or a coffee, in the morning on Friday, you're probably fine. But if you're consistently doing it, then caffeine is a drug, so there's potential for substance abuse. I know it affects the body. It speeds up the heart rate. It's not a healthy thing to have. So especially consistent use over time is definitely going to be deteriorating something, and it's going to really wear people down because they're pushing themselves past where their body wants to go. So just overall, no, it's not a good thing.
Do you think there's anything students can do to kind of combat the negative health concerns with lack of sleep? If they may be taking antioxidants or vitamin C, like, do you think there's anything that can kind of help if they know they're going to have a pretty late night?
I think having a really good diet is something that can help with that because if you're not sleeping but you're also eating junk food throughout the day and you're eating inconsistently and you're not drinking water, like staying hydrated is so important, especially when you haven't slept. So having better eating routines and maybe some type of exercise routine, even though if you're really tired, who's got time for that? But if you can keep the other tiers of your health in check, maybe lack of sleep won't hurt so much. Um, but I think it kind of goes hand in hand to say lack of sleep usually means lack of time, and usually self-care is one of the first things people let go because they're so busy trying to accommodate other people and assignments and jobs and things like that. So, but yeah, especially if they're more educated on the benefits of staying hydrated and knowing about their vitamins and antioxidants, it definitely is going to help alleviate some of the stresses and symptoms that come from the lack of sleep.
I think the biggest health concern for college students would definitely be regarding mental health. I think a lot of people deal with stress differently, and there's so many different stressors that come into everyone's lives throughout college. Obviously everyone gets stressed out about schoolwork and balancing their friend life and their social life, and then also people typically start to form more like deeper relationships in college. You know, like you start to meet like you start to meet like a boy that you really like, or a girl, and then it goes to a different level than it would go in high school. And then also just like the stress of like basically trying to maintain your health, you know, like you'll see people who can eat whatever they want, and then you feel that you can do that, and then you feel gross about yourself, or like vice versa, if you're that person who like doesn't enjoy working out, but all your friends go to the gym like 4 or 5 times a week, and it like pressures you to do it. So I think like just the way that people deal with that, and the way that people like get down on themselves, it's like I think that's the biggest concern. And like I feel like people can either deal with that properly and like learn to like balance their lives, or like some people just get so stressed out and it just like basically eats away at them until like almost every aspect of their life is like in shambles essentially.
And do you think social media being so prevalent in college-age students' lives is also kind of affecting their self-esteem levels, and seeing these Instagram perfect people and trying to be like them also kind of weighs on their mind?
No, I'd absolutely say that's a thing. I think the best example that I can think of is one of my friends from home. She, for like 2 or 3 years, she hated the school that she went to. Like she hated her university. But if you just looked at her Instagram account, you'd think that she was having the time of her life. Like she was always posting with new people, like at different social events, like with her sorority, like everyone was always smiling and having a good time. And then she'd call me up later on and she was crying because she hated everything and everyone. So it's like people, you act differently on social media than you would in real life, and that could make everyone think that you're having a good time and then wonder why their life isn't that perfect, or why they don't really feel like that. So yeah, I would definitely say social media has a lot to do with it.
Now, in the mental health issues, other than body imaging, do you think there's also a lot of kind of like stress that plays into maybe getting into the anxiety and the depression, which can also make kind of elevate the self-consciousness that people feel if they're already in a kind of a low place?
Yeah, definitely. I think just in general, if you start to get stressed out about school, like you start, I mean, this is coming from a personal aspect. I think when I start to get stressed out about school, I just automatically go into this place that I'm doing horrible in all my classes. Like I always feel like I'm failing or something like that. And that'll definitely like weigh on me and kind of just make me feel like, okay, why do I even bother? Like, why am I even trying anymore? Like, this is just pointless. And then like it just becomes like a spiral, you know, and then I start to feel bad about other aspects of my life, and it just becomes like this thing that like you can't, like this like dark hole that you almost like can't get out of, which is actually really scary to think about. But like I think that happens more often than we'd like to admit, or like more often than people would be willing to share with others, you know?
Yeah, and do you think there's any way that we can kind of prevent students from feeling this way? I know there may be some programs on campus that may or may not be effective, but is there any way that we can kind of help keep the community from feeling this way?
I think just as, like, of course, like, there are different, like, there are different places that you can go on campus where there's support groups and that sort of stuff. But I think in general, like, as, like, members of a community, I think we need to learn, to kind of like express our feelings more, and like tell, like, rather than creating this persona that life is perfect, like everything about what I'm doing is great. I think just talking about like oh hey, like I feel pretty crappy today too about this and this, and then other people will realize, okay, like I'm not that different, you know, like not everything's going according to plan for everyone else either. So like I think it'd make other people feel better about their stressors and like their anxieties. So I think it would like force people to kind of deal with their own problems accordingly, and not just try to suppress them and then make it worse.
So I'd say that the biggest health concern for college students is probably binge drinking. This is really for kind of a couple of reasons, one of which is the peer pressure typically associated with it. I feel like kids are constantly having their friends pressuring them to drink more, pressuring them to drink really kind of any day of the week at this point during college. Especially just because, two, that there's kind of a lack of other activities to do. So oftentimes on weekends during the nighttime on college campuses, the big thing is to go to parties. So a lot of people gravitate towards those, and a lot of binge drinking does go on at these parties. So I think that really contributes to it. Then also, kind of a third reason is that college is typically somewhat of an awkward time for people. They're still trying to figure themselves out, still kind of trying to get their footing. And I think oftentimes binge drinking kind of provides like an outlet, so that people can kind of almost hide behind those like insecurities that they have. And when they binge drink, it just kind of allows them to be a different person, and kind of gives them an excuse for if they do kind of different things or things that are kind of uncharacteristic of who they are. It really kind of gives them an excuse to do those things, and to kind of have like no regrets and just be like, oh, I was drunk, like that's why that happened. So I think that those three things really kind of contribute to it, and really make binge drinking probably the biggest health concern around college campuses.
Now, do you think this happens more in the students that are under 21, or do you think once they hit 21, they kind of feel the need to go overboard and drink all the alcohol now that they can do it legally? Or is it more those 18, 19, 20 who are going out to parties? So where do you think this kind of affects the most students?
I mean, I think there's peaks in kind of different areas. I think typically with freshmen, a lot of the times there's going to be a peak there just because you're experiencing a whole lot of new freedom for the first time, and a lot of freshmen do kind of go a little bit crazy. So there's definitely a peak kind of during that freshman year in terms of binge drinking, and then I feel like it kind of fizzles out a little bit, kind of hits a little bit of a plateau, and people kind of get over it a little bit. They find different things to do, but then once a lot of people start hitting 21, their junior year, it kind of starts to peak again, because people are able to go to the bars again, and kind of adds almost like a new spin, like a fresh spin on binge drinking, because it allows them to have the option to go out, not to just go to parties and things like that, but to actually go out to bars, go out with their friends, and because it's now classified as legal, it makes them think that it's more okay to be drinking excessive amounts of alcohol. So.
Now, do you think there's always the connotation that Greek life and being part of sports teams has an effect with throwing parties before and after games or events and everything? Do you think this also plays into the binge drinking?
100%, like no doubt about it. I mean, recently there was a whole thing that happened at Penn State, in which there was some hazing that went on, and a lot of hazing happens to revolve around a lot of binge drinking. Unfortunately, at Penn State, somebody happened to pass away because of kind of all of this happening. And I mean, a lot of that came down to students around him not taking responsibility and not doing the responsible thing. But the binge drinking is basically what started it all. And so I think a lot of that does have to do with Greek life. The Greek life associations are usually the ones that are throwing the parties, providing the alcohol to the underage kids, and definitely pressuring them to drink more, pressuring the pledges to drink more, things like that to kind of accept them into their new group. And I think a lot of the acceptance kind of comes along with almost how much they can drink sometimes.
And do you think there's any way that we can kind of prevent college kids from letting this affect their academic life?
I think a lot of college campuses do try to kind of combat this binge drinking by providing like different outlets. So I know here we do things like Perkins Now or Perkins Live and Shabbat Now to just kind of give students the option to not just binge drink constantly. In terms of kind of combating it during like weekdays and having it really affect a lot of academic performance, I don't think it's a huge factor sometimes. I think it tends to be more isolated experiences on the weekends. And then usually people use kind of like Sunday as almost like a recuperation day. So I don't think it necessarily always affects kind of like those weekday performances in the classroom and things like that. Sometimes when people turn 21, they'll skip class to go to the bars or things like that, which I don't know if there's much that universities can do about that. It's really kind of the student's decision in that regards as to how they're going to spend their time. But I think kind of providing those different options that they have been doing on weekend nights, and just kind of giving students another outlet to kind of like spend their time and do something fun, and during these other options is a little bit more constructive than just binge drinking, then I think that's kind of a good path that a lot of universities are choosing to do.
I think the biggest health concern is eating healthy. On campus, we've got a lot going on, and there's a lot of stress, and so it's a lot quicker to just grab food at a dining hall, or even just order out, and that kind of food's often cheaper, and it's also a lot more unhealthy than cooking for yourself, but it takes a lot less time, and as students we don't have a lot of that. So a lot of people turn to that, but also, fresh vegetables and fruits are really important to your diet, but you have to kind of go to a grocery store to get access to them even, and a lot of people don't have cars. So I think there should be more options on campus to kind of get fresh, healthy foods.
So do you think franchises like Grubhub kind of play into this and making it easier to choose to order out instead of just cooking for yourself?
Definitely. I mean, I know I've used Grubhub and a whole bunch of my friends do as well, and it's really easy to order it even to the library if you're studying for a late night. And it tends to be like burgers, mozzarella sticks, french fries, you don't get too many healthy options on places like that.
Now, do you think there's any way that kind of Delaware could help students, as in like stocking maybe the pods with vegetables and fruit?
Yeah, I mean, I think increasing like how many vegetables they have, even pre-prepared, because students in dorms don't have, they have kitchens, but they would have to maybe wait for them because there's usually only one for the whole entire dorm. Or also, I know some colleges in Philadelphia have food trucks that come through, and so they do like local farms and urban farming, and so it helps kind of two aspects at the same time.
Now, do you think the dining halls having a self-serve kind of buffet style plays into the whole healthy eating, maybe overeating that a lot of students face?
Definitely. I think even freshman year, people are kind of overwhelmed by all the options they have and all of the different foods that are offered in the same day, and a lot of them aren't healthy choices, and so I think they could increase and even make people more aware of what they're putting in their food so that people can make better choices.
But do you think people even pay attention to kind of like the serving sizes that they have? Because I know they have nutritional labels, but I feel like the serving sizes may be not always noted by the college students themselves.
Definitely, and people go back for seconds, and sometimes they might not even realize how much they're eating before they're done. And I mean, you can take as many plates as you want, and it's all self-serve, so there's no real portion size that's listed, and I think that would be helpful.
And do you think studying like snacking is also kind of an issue? Like getting the right snacks instead of gravitating towards maybe candy and ice cream? Like, do you see that being kind of a problem with you personally or friends?
Yeah, I know even me personally, I like to snack while I study, and since as students, we spend so much time studying and sitting, I think that's an issue. So I know like goldfish are easy because you can stick them in your backpack, or like ice cream is a big one for me that I have to watch. So snacks that are easy and quick and can fit in your backpack are often not healthy. So some more options around campus to make it easier for students, I think might be a good idea.
Do you think there should be more awareness put out about the negative side effects that putting certain things in your body might have?
I think it might be helpful. I mean, I know students might not pay too much attention to it, but in the back of their minds it might be there. And even just seeing more options for them, or seeing kind of like portion sizes laid out, might make them think about it, and might make them healthier even if they don't think it is.
Now, going back to the pods, do you think having all those snacks in such close proximity is good or bad for the college students overall?
See, that's kind of hard because it'd be really hard to take them away because they're already there. But I do think it's kind of a temptation for students, but I think they should be able to moderate themselves at this point. I don't think it would be beneficial in any way to take them away. I think that, there's the new delivery thing now called GoPuff, I think it is, that'll deliver snacks to wherever you are. And so I'm not sure if kind of taking away the options is the answer. I think people just need to be more aware and make better judgments.
So kind of more in moderation. Keep in mind eating anything is good in moderation.
Exactly, yeah.
I think the biggest health concern for college students is lack of sleep, because sleep is very important to our bodies, and I think a lot of people underestimate just how important it is. I know, coming from personal experience, I always think staying up late the night before a test, to study to cram is the most effective, and it's proved that it's not. And it's important. Our body needs sleep to function, and when we deprive our bodies from sleep, we don't, I know I seem like I'm in a fog, and definitely one thing I've learned to prioritize more is sleep.
So is there like a specific time where you had a lack of sleep that you noticed affected your next day, whether it's in classes or when you're with your friends?
Oh, absolutely. There was one day where I literally got, I think, like 2 hours of sleep. And remember, I'm on a club sport here, Club Ultimate Frisbee team. And I remember at practice, I was like, I had no energy whatsoever. I literally thought I was just going to like collapse on the field. But I didn't. And even I had a test that day too. And the test, I just like, I had to keep making sure I was awake during the test. Like cramming it wasn't effective.
Is there anything that how you would suggest college students kind of better time out their sleeping schedule? Do you think naps are effective to combat the lack of sleep? Because I know naps could either be, some people think it helps, some people think it hurts. Have you tried naps successfully or unsuccessfully?
I've had some success with naps, some unsuccesses with naps. I think the biggest thing with naps is one time I took a nap and then I woke up and it was already dark out and my circadian rhythm was just like completely thrown off because I went to bed when it was light out and then went to bed when it was dark out. I was like, my body was like, oh, okay, it's time to go back to bed, now again. But it's like, oh, it's only 7 o'clock. I have to go up, go to practice, eat dinner now. Whereas other times I have felt better after taking a nap. But
now, do you think caffeine is a good way to stay awake? Like, do you think it's better to drink a cup of coffee instead of taking a nap in the long run?
I mean, I'm biased, I think, because I don't drink coffee. I don't, need caffeine to stay awake. But coming from experience, I know people, they do drink coffee, to try and stay awake. Sometimes it is effective, other times people who drink so much coffee, it doesn't have any effect on them. It doesn't even make a difference. They're just still so tired, if they don't get enough sleep the night before.
I don't know if you ever heard that lack of sleep can be connected to the same level of awareness as being drunk. Do you think that there's any merit to that, and if that could also kind of affect a student's ability to even drive or, like you had said, take a test?
Absolutely. I think lack of sleep definitely like desensitizes your body, not almost in the same way, I guess, as alcohol does. Like when I don't get enough sleep, I feel very lackadaisical, very dizzy, just, out of it. Like someone will be talking to me and then I just wouldn't process anything that they're saying, almost, the same way as if I was to be drinking. Or yeah, I definitely think lack of sleep definitely has an effect on how you operate machinery, especially driving.
All right, well, thank you so much for your time.
Thank you.